some absolute abomination of a chess coach taught this to his students. And at nationals, kindergarten nationals, a school prepared the following variation: E5. White didn't know that.
I know what you're gonna say, but go ahead. I
think I've told you the story,
go ahead,
right?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and White got scared and did this and lost. So in the next game, they prepared and they said, "Hey, if that happens, take the pawn." Great. You know what? And then, well, Hikaru knows, but in this position, the kindergarten trainer prepared this: check, G3, and the absolutely savage move, Bishop E7. And the kid with the white pieces took the queen and got mated anyway. The same kid.
So this is the accelerated dragon. Black brings the knight out and pushes the pawn and moves the bishop here. So unlike when we were doing it before, we're doing this as a beginner level opening. So what do you think, Levy?
Oh man, for beginners, it's not something that I would necessarily recommend. The thing is also, if you're talking about from the white or black perspective, I don't know if I can give it a legit title. Maybe we keep it in more of a really bro. It's definitely not something that's tricks only, but it's I don't know, and dare I say, might even just be too complicated in and of itself to put in the garbage category, but it's got to be really bro for me. For beginners, the accelerated dragon is just a little bit too complex. Folks shouldn't be thinking about fianchetto and lack of space in the center, but
yeah. So I mean, I guess for me, what I would say is that I kind of agree. I don't know, like I kind of agree. I think it's got to go in I think it goes in, I don't know if it's garbage. Where do I put it? This is actually hard. I think I put it in really bro. I think there are too many issues with it objectively to place it anywhere else. So that's why I put it in really bro. Because to me, I can't really think of anywhere else to put it. So next up we have the advanced Caro-Kann. So the advanced Caro-Kann, of course, is pawn to e4, pawn to c6, d4, d5, and pawn to e5 here.
Well, look, if you're a beginner and you want to play e5, I recommend it. If you're a new player, two pawns in the center is not too complicated to follow. And then if you get a person playing d5, I think e5 is the way to go. It's as long as you follow it up with natural space-taking moves. So knight f3, bishop e2, bishop d3, f4 maybe, all these different...
Oh, I was going to say on bishop f5, just play knight c3, g4, knight g2.
Okay. Yeah, there's also this tricky one where you try to trap the bishop, and this one.
Right.
So something like h4, because you can win like this. So there are some tricks. I think it's quite good. I think at this level, it's either unbreakable, and it does have the potential to be legendary, but you need to know what to do against this. You need to know that you can't just play c3 and knight f3. Like, you should take, like, you need to learn that.
Sorry. Yeah, so you're saying you need to know what to do against pawn to c5, because you can take the pawn on c5, right?
Yeah, because some people don't. They like play like this. And...
Right. No, I totally agree. Yeah, I think for me, I would rank it pretty highly, actually. I think I would rank it... I don't know if it's legendary. It's close. I think it's unbreakable. I think it's very high up. I don't want to say it's legendary because it's good, but I think it's not quite to that level. So I would say it's unbreakable.
For the next two, considering we have the entire batch there.
Oh, right, we do have it. Yeah, I would say advanced with knight c3, g4, knight g2. I would put it up in unbreakable. And then the advanced Caro regular, I'm just gonna put these two down here in garbage. And I'll leave the advanced Caro-Kann, knight c3, g4, knight g2, and unbreakable. How's that? I think that's reasonable, right?
So the regular advanced Caro is where?
It's in garbage.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's systematic. I don't think the ideas where you try to develop normally with like bishop e2 and so forth really make a lot of sense personally. Like, I mean, I can understand it, like bishop f5 playing knight f3, e6, bishop e2, but a lot of the ideas involving like knight d2, knight b3, and c3, they don't feel like I don't know, it doesn't feel thematic. It doesn't feel like something where you have a straightforward plan.
Yeah, that's fair. If you're gonna play advanced Caro with h4, it's definitely great because it's pretty straightforward. You just try to take as much space as possible. But yeah, I agree. Like all these meta ideas with a4, a5, etc., not good for beginners. Right.
So I think that's why those two specifically, they belong down here in the garbage bin specifically. Because like h4 is not practical, regular is not practical. h4 is playable, of course. But I mean, but yeah, all right, let's keep going. So next up we have the advanced French, which is a very exciting opening. This is e4, e6, d4, d5, pawn to e5. So what do you think, Levy?
Well, I guess if we're talking, white has the option to push this pawn here. So it's probably from white's perspective. At a beginner level, again, I actually like this. Because if black isn't super familiar with how to take advantage of all these like different weaknesses that white can have on the queen side with c5, knight c6, queen b6, if you play just solid c3, knight c3, f4, or even knight c3, knight e2, like there's different setups where you can like consolidate your center. I'm a pretty big fan. I don't know. I would probably put it in legit. I mean, I don't know about unbreakable because if black knows what they're doing, then well. You're not gonna...
It's tough. I mean, I hinge on both. I grew up playing the advanced French as white pretty much from this time I started until I was about, I think until the time I was about 2300 maybe, or 2200. I only played the advanced French. I don't think it's legendary, but I think it's, I don't actually, you know what, I think it is legendary. I think it's by far and away the best setup as a beginner. So I'm trying to think, what are the other setups you can do? You can play the Taraj, which is way too complicated. Can you try to build a pawn chain anyway? You can play knight c3, but the Winnow is just too impractical, I think. So I'm going to put it as legendary because I think it's a very thematic setup, and you can follow it straight through. So I think for me, it goes in legendary.
Okay.
Because I just think it's the best setup for white because you learn the basics of the pawn chain. And I feel like you learn how to develop, but it can be risky too. So I would say playing the advanced. I think it is legendary for me.
Well, then this next one's going to be a fun one too. The Alapin Sicilian.
Yeah. So again, the Alapin Sicilian, for those of you guys, is the Sicilian defense, e4, pawn to c5, and white plays pawn to c3 on move 2. Yeah, what do you think?
Straightforward idea of trying to take 2 pawns in the center. Well, look, if you know what you're doing and you know the lines where black either has to bring a queen out early with something like this, or, or has to play like this, I think for beginners, these are very non-traditional positions. And so if a person playing with the black pieces just plays natural moves and you take the center like this, very, very legitimate weapon. Now, the problem is that if black does know what they're doing at a more intermediate level, you'll play a lot of positions with an isolated pawn, and that's where I can't really recommend it at a legendary level, but definitely unbreakable or very high legit. I think it's quite good for beginners to just play c3 and put a second pawn in the center.
I don't really disagree. I actually agree. I think it goes like right up near the top of legit. I think it's just a very solid, very, very good approach. And I don't know if it belongs unbreakable. I think it totally belongs in legit though.
All right, so it'll take the top legit spot.
Okay, so next up we have the Alekhine's defense, which is pawn to e4, knight to f6. Which I assume, since this is an opening that black chooses, we should be thinking about it from the black perspective. So.
Yep.
What do you think?
Oh man, it was garbage before. I mean, I might as well make it garbage again. You know, when you're a beginner, you're kind of hoping your opponent just plays knight f3 here and you win this pawn. That's because people are pre-moving in the opening, you know. But other than that, for beginners, do not recommend not having a pawn in the center, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can, I mean, very natural moves here by white, even knight f3, bishop c4. You can land in a lot of trouble. So I don't know, Hikaru. It's either tricks only or it belongs in the same dumpster bin as last time.
Yeah, I agree. I don't even need to think. Clearly garbage. Not even a question. The lack of getting pawns in the center as a beginner, it's not what you want to do. You want to put pawns in the center so the piece play is very straightforward. The ideas in the Alekhine's defense are very complicated, and even for grandmasters, you can end up in a lot of trouble very quickly if you don't know what you're doing. So I totally agree. It's absolute garbage. So next up we have the Benko Gambit, which as we know is named after the late Paul Benko, the American-Hungarian grandmaster, which goes d4, knight f6, c4, c5, pawn to d5, pawn to b5, c takes b5, and black plays pawn to a6, gambiting a pawn, and then eventually fianchettoing the bishop and playing for a lot of activity on the open a and b files down the road. So Levy,
garbage at this level. Garbage. That's all I have to say. Too theoretical, relies way too much on a very precise set of moves, which you will not be getting up until you're maybe 17, 1800, when people actually start using d4, c4 in their prep. Very good opening if both players are up to the task. But I mean, like I said, if all you know is the Benko and this happens, what are you gonna play? You're gonna play b5 and like no. So
no. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's very conclusive. I really don't disagree. I think it's garbage or I think it's garbage. It's definitely
not, yeah.
Where is it? It's I think it's in the middle of the garbage pile. So next up we have the Benoni. Again, very similar opening: d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, e6, knight c3, pawn takes d6, e4. So you reach the setup where black has pawns on d6 and c5, and white has pawns on e4 and d5.
Here's what I'll say about this. If your opening repertoire against d4 and c4 and all this stuff is to go knight f6 followed by c5, if we really think about it, you can get it almost any time, right? Like, true. Even against the London, if you know what you're doing, and then you can actually use that as a pretty good London antidote, because you can play positions like this, where you play, you know, that surprises a lot of London players. This is definitely not garbage, but it's, in my opinion, it has a little bit more merit, but it's still a little bit too, I mean, you should focus on center pawns. So e6, d5, you should really not look too much for c5, because the chance that you get a Benoni main line before you're 1500, extremely low. So I'll let you make the call, but
yeah, and just to be clear, those of you who are watching, when we're talking about these openings, before we were talking at a grandmaster level, that sort of perspective as a serious professional, as a beginner, the whole thought process, all these openings is completely different. So, yeah, in terms of the Benoni, I think it goes in tricks only, but I think it goes at the very top.
Okay. Yeah, it's tricky, I guess. You know, dark square diagonal, bishop on g7. There is some merit.
I don't think it's like I don't think it falls in really bro. I would say it should be in I think it should be in that tier. That seems like the right tier, because it is tricks. So next up we have the Berlin defense, which of course is e4, e5, or sorry, not e6, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, knight to f6. So Levy, thoughts?
Well, I like it. But here's the thing: you're not going to get a Berlin endgame at this level. I'll tell you why I like it. I mean, I like it because you're just developing to the center, right? And I mean, there is a chance that something like this happens. You know, you get this kind of thing. So I don't necessarily recommend studying deep Ruy Lopez if you're like 800, but
right.
I do recommend pieces in the center and a pawn in the center. So it's not legendary at this level, but it's up there. I mean, is the Berlin taking on e4?
Well, I mean, I don't know where I rank, because I think it's very risky as a beginner. I feel like there's so many dangers. Like, you could take and forget, take with a b pawn and lose the pawn. Like, takes knight e4, queen e2. Like dc6, let's say white even castles. Like, I think it's very intuitive, just take the pawn, allowing rook e1. And then blacks, I mean, okay, at the GM level it's different, but like sort of as a beginner, I think it's very, very risky to play this.
Okay, so if we're talking about the early pawn grab on e4, then yeah, it could be.
Well, I'm just saying, can you really prepare someone to play this? Like, what would you play after castles? If you're a beginner or you're relatively new to the game, what would you play in this position after a castle and move 5?
No, I would tell what I tell folks all the time in E4 E5 is like if a piece hasn't moved, get it out, kind of a thing. But if you don't know that and all your prep is to take the E4 pawn, yeah, you're gonna lose. You're just gonna lose. So it's gonna be very bad.
Because I feel like the concepts are very deep. You have to use the 2 bishops. It does to me. I don't know. I don't know. I actually don't think it's a good opening because I think there are too many chances to make mistakes.
Okay.
Like I actually think it's very risky. I think it goes in really bro. In 1 second, sorry, my phone is ringing. Give me 1 second.
All right.
Sorry. Hello? Yeah, you can let them through. Thank you. Bye. Hello? Are we here?
Yeah, that was fast.
That was just my sushi. All right. Okay, so yeah, I think for me it goes in the really bro category because like I feel like it's so risky. It just feels too risky as a beginner, honestly. So it just feels too risky.
Let's do it.
All right, so next up we have the birds opening. So the birds opening, as we know, is pawn to f4 on move 1.
Correct.
Thoughts?
Get this shit off my screen.
Okay.
I want to tell you a funny story real quick.
Sure.
Some absolute abomination of a chess coach taught this to his students. And at nationals, kindergarten nationals, a school prepared the following variation: E5. White didn't know that.
I know what you're gonna say, but go ahead. I
think I've told you the story,
go ahead,
right?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and White got scared and did this and lost. So in the next game, they prepared and they said, "Hey, if that happens, take the pawn." Great. You know what? And then, well, Hikaru knows, but in this position, the kindergarten trainer prepared this: check, G3, and the absolutely savage move, Bishop E7. And the kid with the white pieces took the queen and got mated anyway. The same kid. So here's what I'm telling you: do not weaken your king as a beginner. Bad things are going to happen, and that's that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Not even a question. Definitely garbage. I think it might be actually like the worst of the worst for a beginner. Give me 1 second. I got to get my food, so I'll be right back.
Yeah, it's an absolute disaster of an opening. Was I playing the kid? No, it was not me. Come on. I also have to say that at a scholastic level, to prepare, adult title player coaches preparing kids like that's just, it's also an ethical question, because it's sort of like, what are you teaching these kids, right? So,
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think in general, king safety really does matter a lot if you're a beginner. So playing stuff that doesn't sort of that weakens your king at the start is very, very risky and not the best idea. That's definitely for sure. Oh, I have to show food apparently.
Let's do it.
Can you guys see it? There, I think that's cool.
Oh, that looks aesthetic.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So yeah, I got some unagi. Where's the steak? I couldn't order. Outback Steakhouse wasn't open. Sorry, you guys. All right. Okay, now chat's gonna go insane. Next up, of course, is the BongCloud. As you know, very special opening, very near and dear to many of our hearts. So it goes E4, say black plays pawn to B6, and you go king to E2. Thoughts?
Yeah, well, look, at the grandmaster level, this is legendary, but if we're actually trying to be instructive, yeah, don't do this. But that's all I really have to say.
Don't do this. Okay.
Yeah, feel free to disagree with me, but
okay, I agree right off. I think for a beginner, it's a very bad opening. Goes at the absolute bottom.
Yes, we watched the BongCloud speedruns, potentially with our bongs and our clouds, but do not actually play it. Okay. It's too complex. Yes, that's really the problem. It's not that it's bad, it's just too complicated. So just wait until you're GM, then start playing King E2.
Agreed. Okay, so next up we have the
you put it in garbage?
Yeah, I put it in the garbage.
Man, a lot of garbage.
Yeah, so next up we have the Budapest Gambit, which is d4, knight to f6, pawn to c4, pawn to e5. White grabs and black move the knight to e4, g4. Thoughts, Levy?
I don't hate it. You know, I feel like a gambit repertoire actually does make chess a lot of fun. You will get it a lot, and it will throw people off. But there's still some issues with this because gambit players don't like their regular opening principles take a step back when all they learn is gambit. So probably a tricks only opening. But you can win some very nice games. Gambits are pretty fun, especially when you're starting out.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it definitely is. It's a reasonable try, but I think it's risky because white can also play knight f3 to stop it on move 2.
Right.
So yeah, I think for me, it's got to go at the top of tricks only.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you think it goes higher?
No, I think it's tricks. So it's got to be higher than Benoni though. I don't know.
Right. So okay, good. So next up we have the Caro-Kann, which, as you guys know, is pawn to e4, pawn to c6. So now we're looking at it from the black perspective, not the white perspective. Now you, of course, are an expert on this opening, Levy. So what are your thoughts?
I like it for beginners. As I've said, I think you can learn the Caro-Kann in 10 minutes or less, and you can just find the very simple approach. You either put that pawn on d5 and you take the pawn when it stays there. We also saw this get taught. Well, let me finish my first sentence. You can also, just play a simple exchange variation. Your biggest nemesis could be the advanced if you don't know how to play this, but there's this c5, and if you know how to play it, that's all you need to learn. We saw this get taught to PogChamps participants, Hikaru, so it's got to be a legendary beginner's opening or unbreakable.
Yeah, I would say I tend to agree. I think actually for beginners, it's got to be in the I think it's legendary. I think it's just one of the best openings you can play as a beginner. I can't think of a better opening because it's just straightforward. You play like generally the same idea. So I think it has to be at the top. Definitely a legendary opening and at the beginner level.
Also, I think when you play on the light squares as a beginner with the black pieces, you actually, I mean, this is going to sound funny, but you cut out a lot of the crap. Like you cut out a lot of these bishop c4, queen h5, barbaric mates. Because I'm sure that beginners who are watching get hit with these queen, sorties, right?
Right, this is true. Yeah, I think just, the fact that you put the pawns on c6 and d5 at the very start certainly prevents a lot of these trick ideas. So yeah, I agree. I think certainly the Caro-Kann, it's definitely a great opening. It deserves its status as a legendary opening. So next up we have the Catalan, which is d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, pawn to d5, and pawn to g3. Thoughts, Levy?
Okay, so here's the thing. Much like the Berlin, you're not going to get you will not be able to fully reap what you sow here. You will not get the different ideas that the super GMs employ. However, it is a very solid setup. It really is, and it is unbreakable at the beginner level. And it's, the only question is, do you know what to do when they take your pawn on c4? That's it. Do you know how to deal with this? And do you know how to punish them? Do you know how to use this diagonal? It's a little too advanced, but it's so solid that I don't hate it. So,
well, I'm going to take a different tack. I'm going to say that in terms of the Catalan, I think it's okay, but I actually don't like it because I think there's another. Is the other opening on this list still? Let me look. Let's see. Is it? Yeah, there's another opening that's on this list that I like a lot more. So while I do like the Catalan as a setup, there's, I think, a much better setup involving this d3 and c4, or sorry, non-d4, so you know what I'm going to say, that's on this list that I would prefer. So I would say Catalan, I think it goes at the top of really, bro. I just don't think it's a beginner opening.
Okay.
So I think that's where I would put it, because I think there's another set of involving knight f3 and g3 and so forth that we will catch up with later on. That is much better.
All right, close Sicilian.
Right. So yeah, the close Sicilian is a whole different bag altogether. So it's e4, c5, knight c3. Let's say black was knight 6 and you play g3 with bishop g2, knight e2, and pawn to d3. So Levy, thoughts?
I like it. I like it a lot. I think at the beginner level, it's another. It's a hey. I taught it to box. So I have taught this to other folks as well. A good way of dealing with the Sicilian defense, which a lot of people play because it's the most popular opening probably. So unbreakable or legit for sure. I don't know if it gets legendary status, but definitely the top. Definitely a top opening.
Yeah, I think in terms of where I would rank it, it ranks high just because it's a setup. Does it rank higher than legit?
Uh-oh.
I don't know. I want to put it at the top of legit or in unbreakable somewhere, but it doesn't feel like it's open enough for me to put it in unbreakable, so I'm gonna put it at the very top of legit. It's definitely not legendary for me, but I think it's at the top of legit.
Sure. And yeah, I look, it's hard to put a rating number on this, right? Because we want to say beginner is sub 1200, but if you're 1223, like you could still benefit from this. So it's not like, oh, under 1200, I can't watch this. So
right. Yeah, so I don't know. All right, so next up we have the Danish Gambit, which is e4, e5, pawn to d4, pawn takes pawn, pawn to c3. So thoughts, Levy?
I love it. I love it. This could be, I've taught this to students, I've taught this to adults, kids alike, and I've taught, this one as well.
Of course, obviously.
And they win in less than 10 moves. Now, at the same time, look, this is the one drawback. Cheap opening tricks where you get quick leads in development, chess enthusiasts can say that it's not the right way to learn chess, because you're not learning, how to convert in the middle game concept. It's just quick advantage from the opening, big attack. But chess also has to be fun. It's a competitive game at the end of the day. So it's not an unbreakable opening, but at the beginner level, it is. People don't know what to do against it. It's scary. So I vote unbreakable.
As someone who has had an affinity for the Gambits for a long time and really likes the opening, I think it's better than that. I think it goes right up here. I think it goes towards the bottom of legendary. I think it's a legendary opening.
I thought, Hikaru, you were going to say, as a person who's had an affinity for Gambits, I vote this as garbage.
But if I like Gambits, why would I say it's garbage?
I just thought it was like where the humor was heading, but you were being very, very serious. So legendary it is. You guys are witnessing history. Should we teach chat how to defend against it?
No, of course not.
Okay,
but I had a discussion. One of my mods, actually, I remember when I was at he was living with my trainer at the time, maybe like 5-6 years ago. We had some, or maybe it's longer ago than that. We had some big discussion about this. There was some line. Was it d5 takes, and I think we had some long, or it's something like takes, knight f6, takes, queen d8, bishop b4, queen d2, bishop d2, knight d2, rook e8, f3. And we had some long discussion, I think, about this. Oh, sorry. I was on the wrong scene. Sorry. Let me go back then. We had some long discussion on this line with takes, d5 takes, knight f6, bishop f7, king f7, queen d8, bishop b4 with the fossil on the king and the rook, queen d2, bishop d2, knight d2, rook e8, f3. And we had this long discussion about this variation and whether it's this endgame is good for white or not good for white. And I wasn't sure what the conclusion was, but because we had this discussion about this this endgame, I actually played it in a game, and I lost very badly. I think it was against Ibrahimov quite a few years back. So I love the Gambit. I think it's great, but I do think there are drawbacks as players get better and better.
Yes, exactly. They're going to know what to do. At the same time, if somebody's playing e4 and then responding e5,
Well, then you begin to wonder, is e4, e5 even the best reply for black? I
don't think so, actually. But so I will teach that potentially here and there in the PogChamps, but I will recommend that folks learn more like King's Indian, Caro-Kann. But for the absolute beginners, e4, e5 is tricky because you gotta really defend early on if someone knows what they're doing.
Right, I agree. Okay, all right. So let's move on then. So the next opening is the Dragdorf. Interesting. So this is an opening we did not look at before. This is e4 c5, knight to f3, pawn d6, pawn d4 takes, knight takes, knight f6, knight c3, pawn to g6. White normal will go bishop e3, and now instead of playing the normal dragon with bishop g7, black plays a6. So you try basically to play the Najdorf, but then you also try to play the dragon by fianchettoing your bishop. So it's a mix of the Najdorf and the dragon, hence the name, the Dragdorf. Thoughts?
I'm actually going to go to you on this. What are your thoughts for beginners?
This is tough. I think it's too much to remember. I think it's too many complicated ideas like knight c6 or knight d7 with b5. I mean, like, you have to know the ideas with both the dragon, but you also have to know the ideas of the Najdorf. I think it's too much. I don't think it's garbage, because I think you can probably play it. But I would say that in general, for me, it would be I think it goes in sort of the bottom of really bro. I think it's just a little bit too complicated. I think it's too complicated. It
is way too complicated. Even we've seen GMs not even handle these positions correctly. So
I don't think it's garbage, because I think for beginners you can teach it in a way that they will be able to understand some of it. So yes. I don't think it's garbage, but I think it's in that, like, really bro, really you're gonna play that as your defense when there's so many better options. So that's where I would rank it, sort of the bottom of really bro. So next up we have the Dutch defense, which is pawn to d4 on move 1 and pawn to f5. So what do you think of this, Levy, since it's black's replying after white's first move?
Right. I actually don't hate this as much. I don't hate it as much. I'll tell you why. Because somehow all these responses where you can play like aggressive gambits just don't get played. Because people who play d4, they play London, they play knight f3. From what I've seen in teaching beginners, in teaching intermediate players, the Dutch defense, especially Leningrad, when you just kind of fianchetto, can be very good. It actually can be very good. It's sort of funny, but when you have the white pieces on the first move, weakening your king like that, it's a little more dangerous, because black actually can go for this e5. So I rate it as legit, or yeah, let's go with legit. Do you think that we have to also put it in the same category as the Birds opening?
No, but I mean, the reason that it's weird to me is because I grew up playing e4. Okay, so e4 was what I played. So I didn't really play d4, and then around, like, when I was 2400, I decided to not switch, but I started playing d4 too. And until probably I got to about 2650-ish, the only line that I knew against it was e4, pawn takes pawn, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5.
Yep, this is what I play against it too.
Right, and my opinion is that most people who are not relatively strong players, unless they're really strong, they're not going to know that knight c6 is the best move. And I feel like if you play any move except knight c6, you're actually going to end up significantly worse. So to me, I don't know where it ranks. I feel like all these gambits like this, knight c3, or even pawn to f3 are quite dangerous. So it's hard for me to judge. This is kind of the issue.
Yes, so if we know that this option exists, that would be very dangerous. But, like, okay, from experience, I've probably seen these kinds of aggressive gambits in less than 5% of games.
Huh, really? So they don't teach kids the way they used to, is what you're saying?
Yeah, they don't teach kids or intermediate players. So older players potentially. So what do we do?
I guess I'll put it in. I don't even know where it goes. I have no idea. It's definitely not garbage. It's definitely not tricks only. So I'm just debating between, like, really bro and legit. Is it legit or not? I mean, based on the setups, like, because you can play Leningrad, you can also play Stonewall. I think I'll put it at the bottom of legit. I think it goes in legit. So that to me seems like a reasonable spot. So all right, next up we have the the English, right?
Yes.
So I don't know why, but for some reason, let me go back. For some reason, our graphic, the English, has a picture of Samuel L. Jackson instead of the Union Jack. I'm not really sure why, but anyway, it is what it is.
That's from the movie, and then is his character named? I don't know.
Oh, English, do you speak it? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I forgot it.
Oh, the famous line, English mother quacker, do you speak it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Actually, wait, can we swear now and then they'll just edit it out? Okay.
I don't think so. Union Jackson, right, exactly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, of course. I forgot, obviously. And no, we cannot. So the English opening pawn to c4. Well, what do you think, Levy?
Kind of think Jake is watching. Oh man.
Oh, is that one of your students who you told to play this?
No, do you remember the sub battles? He played c4, total pandemonium broke loose. I told him to start playing e4. Look, c4 is good. If you play c4 with g3, bishop g2, it's fine. It's all fine. The 4 knights with the with the 2 knights coming out, it's all good. But the truth of the matter is, it's a little too mysterious. I mean, you know what I mean? Are you really gonna play like rook b1, b4, b5? Like, come on. So it's legit, but for me, it doesn't get any more than that.
Yeah, I actually have nothing more to add. I completely agree. I think you can play it, but I feel like they're better setups. You want to play pawn g3, bishop g2, and bring the knight out. There are a couple other setups that I think are much better, like the closed Sicilian, or even one of the openings that's coming up later that I think I'm going to put in a pretty highly ranked tier. So for me, I think it, I think it goes in legit, but it's kind of at the bottom.
You know, I might even just say it goes in really, bro, because I feel like beginners, when they get hit with c4, they actually audibly just exhale. They just
maybe. Yeah, actually, you know what? I think you're right. I think actually you're right. It probably goes at the top of really, bro.
Just demoted it.
Yeah. Okay, so next up we have the Englund Gambit, which I believe is it d4 e5?
Yes.
d5 d6 takes bishop d6. So black gambits the 2 central pawns.
No.
No.
Hikaru, let me help you rummage through the garbage here. This opening actually for beginners is unbreakable or legendary. I'm not gonna lie to you.
But it is d4 e5 d5 d6, right?
No, it's not d6. So there's this line. I had a student lose like this in 9 moves at the state championship.
Oh, it's knight c6.
Yes, knight f3, queen e7, bishop f4, queen before check. Yes, bishop d2, queen here, and then now white has to play knight c3, because if you go here, you get hit with bishop b4 with the pin, and sometimes white goes queen d2.
Right, yeah.
And oh my, checkmate on move 8.
Yes.
Checkmate on move 8. GG, yo.
Right. So stronger players play d6, but you're right. Knight c6 is the more appropriate way of playing it. I agree.
Yeah. So listen, what I always taught my students here, I nicknamed this for my students who played London. I just call it London poison, because you can't play bishop f4 here. I'm like, just don't do it. It's the one thing. Just put your knights out. You'll be fine. However, first time witnesses of this opening with the white pieces almost always do something ridiculous and get a terrible position.
That is true, so, yeah.
For that reason, let's put it in legit. I vote legit. You can vote otherwise.
Where do you think it goes in legit?
I
think it actually goes really high. I think it's just really, I don't know.
Here's the thing. I think that you can win a lot of games with it, but once you get to a point, it'll never work again, and then that's when you either quit chess or learn a new opening. So
that is true. Yeah. So I think okay, I'll put it in the middle then. I think it goes in the middle. Okay, so next up we have the Evans Gambit, which again, more gambits, is pawn to e4, pawn e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, and now pawn to b4. and usually black will take. White goes c3 and plays for castles and d4 right away to attack in the center. So what do you think, Levy?
I love it. I love this opening. I think any gambit in traditional theory, like the same as the Danish, I think this one is fantastic. Probably unbreakable or legend. I mean, the thing is, it's also not that bad. Like, I mean, are people really going to know the theory? So, and even if they do, white is fine. So, I like it a lot. Somewhere at the top.
I think Evan's Gambit. It's weird to have both these up there, but I think Evan's Gambit is legendary. I mean, it's how legendary is it? I think it's really legendary.
I mean, look at the
I think it's the OG for the moment. I think it's just that legendary.
Wow.
I just think it really is that legendary. Because if you try to decline it, it doesn't really work very well if you decline it. Like, you can't really decline it. And there are just so many ways to lose. Oh, is this supposed to be Antonio's favorite opening?
Pet line?
Oh, I didn't know if it is. But anyway, yeah, I think it's completely legit. I think it belongs at the very top. For sure. Even at the Grandmaster level, you can play it. It's not considered great, but it's not losing. So the fact that you can even play it at the Grandmaster level, and that's like when people really know the theory and it doesn't lose, it's yeah, it's definitely legendary, no doubt.
Dude, did you know that Alpha Zero plays this opening?
Not shocking. I mean, it leads to, I mean, it's probably just a draw, but yes, again, it's a gambit, but it's always doing well. So for me, I think it goes at the top.